Hey everyone, this is Ashley with CT Arena Digitals. I'm going to do a tutorial to show you how to use my new Christmas floral frames in Photoshop. I have opened the digital that I want to use, and I have opened the image that I want to use. I'm going to be placing the digital onto my original photo, and as you can see, this one is horizontal and this one is a portrait orientation. So first I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my crop tool and I'm going to drag out the sides of my image. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and go over to my digital and select all, edit, and copy. Come over to my image, my original image. I'm going to go to my quick selection tool and select subject. Wait for that to work, and then go ahead and duplicate my layer and create a layer mask. And then I'm going to click this bottom layer down here, edit, and paste in my digital. And go ahead and resize. Be sure that the light is coming from the right direction. I'm going to go ahead and bring this in on the sides here. And then I'm going to crop real quick just because I want the size of my digital, the whole digital to be in sight there. Okay, and then I'm going to click on the top layer, use my move tool, and I'm just going to place my subject. Okay, and now I'm going to, I want to drag her dress down a little bit, so I'm going to go up to Filter and Liquefy. And then I'm just going to use my Liquefy tool to drag down her gown a little bit here on the sides. Press OK, and then I'm also going to play it on the bottom layer down here, go up to Filter, Liquefy. That's going to do exactly what we just did. And on the layer mask there. Okay, that way it does it on all of those layers. Okay, and then I just want the whole image. I'm going to drag this up just a little bit. I'm going to liquefy it a little bit more. I just don't want the dress to be, I could delete it, but I don't really want to do that either. I just want the gown, the whole gown in the photo, but I don't want it to be overlaying where it doesn't make sense. Okay, again, play it on the layer, the mask as well. Alright, now I'm going to go to my black brush and I'm going to, on the layer mask here, I'm going to brush in some of the original floor just to see where my shadows are. I'm going to add shadows to the digital itself, but I wanted to erase or do that real quick just to see where my shadows are falling off of her foot, off the original image, just to get an idea. But it is much easier if you use a floor that matches the digital you're doing, because that way you can just brush the original floor in and you don't have to worry about it. Always shoot for your digital. I don't always do that, obviously, because I sell a ton of them. But that's the best way to do it. So I'm going to create a layer above the digital and create a clipping mask here. Right click and create clipping mask. It's going to be on multiply blending mode. I grab a brush at 100% opacity, and then I'm going to select a dark part of the floor. Hold down Alt on my keyboard for my dropper. Select a dark part on the floor. And then paint in some shadow there. Add another layer, create that clipping mask, multiply blending mode, I do my shadows on a different layer each time so I can work with them individually. It makes it a lot easier. And then I'm just going to click between and create another one so I don't have to keep creating that clipping mask. I'm going to zoom in here. So I can do my shadows a little bit better. You just want to slowly paint in your shadows little by little. Create another one. Create another one. And now this one's going to be for over here. Obviously, I don't want that much. So I'm going to create a layer mask now. Use my black brush on 100% opacity at first. And then I'm going to lower it to around 50. And then lower it a little bit more. Just feathering off that shadow. Okay. That looks good for now. I'm actually gonna, you can use white to paint back on. I'm gonna paint a little of that back on right there. You can use X on your keyboard to switch between your black and white brush. Okay, now I'm going to come up to my mask, and using your white and black brush, you want to brush on and brush off the edges of your subject that you do or do not want. Like I do not want the original backdrop between her toes, but I do want all of her toe, and it cut off some of that. Some of the original floor right here. I don't want that. Can fast forward through this part if you want, because I'm going to go ahead and go over the entire image. Get rid of any shadow that was left over because we painted in our own. Like I said, if you use your original floor, it makes it a lot easier. But sometimes I like to show the tutorials where you have to paint in your shadows because they can be helpful. They're just a lot more of a time-consuming edit. I think it cut off some of the dress right there, so I'm just going to paint in what I think is the gown, as long as it looks okay. Make my brush much smaller now, so we can clean up these edges. Hair I don't usually have to mess with too much. It's usually right up here at the top of their head where you have to fix. But the strays and the flyaways, I try to leave those alone because they get tricky to edit out and back in. So I kind of just leave them as they are. Again, using a backdrop that's going to blend well with the one that you had previously used is going to be your best bet to edit to make that realistic. Quite a bit of touch up on this one. It's because I think it's because I had so much texture on my original image that Photoshop couldn't tell the difference between the subject and the backdrop. Okay, that was the original floor. I'm gonna keep my original shadow there just a little bit. I'm actually gonna paint it back in a little bit right here and then feather it just a tiny bit. Bottom definitely matters the most when you're adding your own shadows. Okay, now we're back to where we started, so we can zoom out and you can check your shadows here. There's a little bit too much shadow at the front of her foot right there. I'm going to create a layer mask on that one. It's a black brush. I'm only going to do about 20% opacity because I don't want to take it all off at once. Black brush, brush that off because the light's coming from this side, so there wouldn't be too much shadow right there. That looks a lot better. Okay, I'm gonna create a layer mask on that one too. Take a little bit more shadow off by the toes right there. There, that looks way more, let's go back, way more realistic. I'm gonna take some off. Oops. Right there too. Now I just toggle these to see which layers I'm working with to know which ones to brush on and off of. The top one, yeah, this one I need to take a little bit of shadow off of right there. Okay, and it can be a lot of playing around to get your shadows to look good at first. Okay, so now that I have her placed, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to merge, or sorry, I'm not going to merge. I'm going to take all my shadows and her, and I'm going to just resize a little bit. Make sure you grab all of it though, because if you move her and you don't move your shadows, it's gonna be all over the place. Okay, so now I'm going to duplicate my background layer here. And I'm going to, so the background is really sharp on these images, like almost too sharp. So you want to add quite a bit of blur because you want your subject to be in focus. So I'm going to go up to Filter and Blur and then Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to add probably about 3 to 3.5. It's going to depend on how far your subject is away from the backdrop. She's not too far away from the backdrop on this one, so I'm not going to add a ton of blur because that's not really going to look very realistic either. So I'm going to add about 3.5, and then I'm going to create a layer mask on that. Then I'm going to use my black brush at 100% opacity. Zoom in here. And I'm just going to brush that blur off of the where she is standing. Just because I don't want to blur the entire image because that's not going to look realistic either. Okay. Go ahead and be sure that you are happy with all of the edges and everything on your subject. Now I'm going to go ahead and create some shadow on the backdrop a little bit over here. If the light's obviously coming from this side, but it's also coming from the front, so there would be a little bit of shadow casted over here. And I only say from the front because that's how my subject is lit. If your subject was only lit from this side, you wouldn't have to add much shadow behind them, because realistically, if it were shot like that, there wouldn't be much shadow cast behind them. So, but mine is lit from the front too. So I'm going to add another layer, and on multiply blending mode, grab my brush. I'm going to use about 25% opacity. And I'm going to grab a dark part of the frame here and just paint in a tiny bit of shadow there, lower the opacity, use a little bit smaller of a brush and add it a little bit more down low. And that just added, not a ton because it's feathered light. She doesn't have very harsh lighting on her, so you're not going to have very harsh shadows. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and flatten my image because I am happy, other than just a few different tweaks that I'm going to add to the image. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flatten. I just noticed this ball over here is like dented. I sometimes do miss stuff on backdrops, so if there's little things you have to correct, I'm just going to use my magic healing tool and get rid of it in just a second. Okay, gone. Alright, so what I like to do to help blend my backdrops with my subject, I think this one matched this photo pretty well, so I was lucky to not have to do too many adjustment layers on there, but you can obviously add as many adjustment layers as you need to, whether your subject needs to be darker or lighter. But when I have it merged and I have everything kind of how I want it, I like to use my my brush and my dropper here, hold down on your keyboard. I like to select like a neutral color in the backdrop. Like this one would be a nice brown color because of the tones in the image. And make sure it pops up over here near colors. And then I'm going to add a solid layer with that color. And then I'm going to bring down the opacity on it. And you can leave it just like this. That's for more of like a matte finish. You can change it to overlay or screen, or overlay or soft light. And you can kind of play around with those different blending modes. Lighten kind of looks good too. It kind of blends the image all together. It kind of works as a filter. Soft light I like to use a lot of times too, and overlay to give it a bit of a pop. And I think I'm actually going to use overlay this time. Then I'm going to go ahead and merge that image. If your subject still looks a little bit copy and pasted, what I like to do sometimes too is grab my blur tool, and it's only about on 20% strength right now, and just go around the very edge of your subject. I mean, like the very edge. Don't add blur like to their bodies or anything. This is only, I'm actually going to up my strength a lot here. There we go. This is only on the very, very edge of your subject, or their gown, or whatever they're wearing. Just to, I forgot to fix my shadows down there, which I can show you how to fix that in just a second. Just go around the very edge and add blur so there's a nice fall off from your subject to the digital backdrop. Okay, I don't usually add blur to the hair unless there's some strays that look like they could use a little bit of blur. I'm going to go over this again because I don't think I had enough blur last time. Okay, and now I'm just going to use my, I don't even know what this is called, the remove tool. I guess that's just what it's called. That's the healing. Okay, it's the remove tool, I guess. This is like my favorite tool in Photoshop, I think. I'm just going to drag that along here real quick, just to get rid of that line that was created from not fixing my shadows after I moved them. Okay, very pretty. And now you can do different adjustment layers if you want. Like sometimes I'll go up to filter and camera raw and add in, like I'll do a little bit of contrast And I'll do a little bit of clarity. Not much, it's just something that helps the again to kind of merge the image together and make it pop a little bit more. But that's it. If you have any questions, you can send me a message. If you are a studio photographer, I would love you to join my group on Facebook. I will link it in the description. You must answer the questions and agree to the group rules to join. This is how I prevent spam in our group, and you will be declined if you do not answer the group questions, so I can make sure that you are not a spammer. You can find a lot more helpful free tutorials on my YouTube channel. And I think that is it. I will also link that in the description.